I'll go for a run and go to yoga class on the weekends and, sleep in on the weekends and do all this stuff and just suppress my emotions. And, I'll have a few outbursts and whatever. But like, okay, if you're fine with that, then great. But if not, there's a 3-phase process to reprogram these brain circuits so it doesn't have to be this way forever. And it's a lot easier and faster than most people think. Welcome. So, Amy, quick question. Do you know how to bake a cake?
Without a recipe? No.
Yeah, right. A recipe is really helpful. By the way, that reminds me, my grandmother, when she turned 90, we went to her house in Iowa to celebrate her birthday. And we're going to have a big dinner. And about an hour before the dinner, she was like, oh no, like I forgot to make a cake. And we're like, you don't need to make a cake for your own birthday. She's like, oh, it's no problem. And she just went into the kitchen and didn't need to follow a recipe book or anything. She just whipped up a cake and it was super easy. And that probably comes from many years of raising 9 children and making everyone their favorite cake on their birthday. But like, she was following a recipe. She just internalized that recipe. And the reason why I wanted to talk about following cake recipes is that there are a lot of important steps. But if you don't do them in the right order or combine them in the right way, then things aren't going to turn out as you wanted. And when it comes to solving issues with overthinking and imposter syndrome and anxiety and how it's impacting your performance at work or your enjoyment in your life, there are a lot of helpful tools out there. And people get stuck because they're trying all of these helpful tools. And even when people join my list or join our community, they're like, oh yeah, like, can you give me some more helpful tools? Like, I'm always looking for tools. And I'm like, well, that's the problem. Like, you need a recipe. You need a strategy, not just adding in more helpful tools. So if you're making a cake and it's not turning out the way you want, someone will be like, hey, have you tried eggs? And you're like, oh, okay, I got this cake and I'll just crack an egg on top of it. Oh, no, like you got to put the eggs in before you bake it. Like, oh, okay. Like, and there's a specific set of things that you need to follow. And I think when it comes to tools for improving happiness and performance, people are just like looking for brain hacks. Like, I have a friend who's really smart and he was a consultant, worked for McKinsey. And he's like, oh, I heard, like, should I take a cold shower? Should I do these things? I'm like, oh, like, those are helpful tools. And even there's neuroscience behind it. And I can explain the neuroscience. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I wrote The Upward Spiral, was like, I realized there's so many helpful tools that people didn't realize would actually change the activity and chemistry of their brain. But the reason why I created a coaching program is because I realized, like, oh, most people are stuck not because they don't have enough tools in their toolbox. It's because they don't have the right recipe or a plan to actually implement those tools in the right order.
Are you saying you have a recipe?
I am saying I developed a recipe and it follows 3 phases. Like, I used to struggle with a lot of issues with anxiety and burnout. And like, I'd achieved a lot in my life. I'd gotten a PhD. I went to Ivy League school. And sometimes it felt like things were harder than necessary. Like, I should feel happier with this. I've jumped through all the hoops. Like, why doesn't it feel more fulfilling? But what I realized is that just having more tools isn't the answer. Just like using another analogy, like if you're trying to remodel your kitchen, you might have the same exact toolbox as your contractor. And you could ask well, what are you going to do? I have that tool too. I have that tool. Right. It's not just having the tools, it is having a blueprint for like what you're trying to build, and then knowing the steps that like, oh, this has to come first and this has to come next, and knowing when to use which tool. Cause otherwise you'll be like, I don't understand. I'm hammering and I'm sawing and it looks terrible because you need that. So I realized like a lot of people are stuck because they have all these helpful tools. And I was stuck too because I was like having all these helpful tools and it felt like trying to build IKEA furniture where you have a bunch of tools and pieces, but no blueprint that put it all together. And that's why I created a coaching program to give people that personalized blueprint that has to follow this 3-phase process, and then the support and guidance and accountability to actually follow through on that.
So, what are the parts of this three-phase process?
Yeah, well, it really maps on to how your brain actually works. And the 3 phases are realign, reset, and rewire. And this allows you to reprogram the brain circuits that are creating the problem in the first place. Because a lot of people think they're stuck in overthinking or anxiety because of their stressful job or tons of commitments, and they're being pulled between their work and their family and their own happiness. And that overlooks something important, which is like, well, why is it that some people seem to do all of the same things that you're doing, but don't get dragged down into these spirals of overthinking and self doubt and anxiety, potentially even burning out? And it's because it's not these things in your life that create the problem. It is how your brain is programmed to react to those things. And some people's brains react in a different way. And so they can stay more focused and more motivated and fulfilled, even if none of these external factors change. So a lot of people are stuck trying to change all these external factors, but you can't always change them, nor would you even want to. Because sometimes it's like your dream job that is creating the stress. And you're like, oh, well, I could get rid of the stress by quitting my job, but I don't want to quit my job. Or other people are like, oh, well, if you just didn't care about doing your best, then you wouldn't feel so stressed. And you're like, but I don't want to just phone it in. I want to do my best. And for a lot of high achievers, your stress isn't coming from nowhere. It's coming from good things that you are choosing. You don't need the unnecessary stress, because a lot of that unnecessary stress is your brain is creating it. But we need to target those brain circuits that are creating the stress and anxiety in the first place. And this 3-phase process focuses on what needs to change about these 3 different brain circuits. So it really just comes down to a 3-phase process: realign, reset, and rewire. And that's how you can reprogram the brain circuits that are creating the problems with overthinking and anxiety and self-doubt in the first place.
But what exactly does that mean?
Well, it's not clear enough already. Realign, reset, rewire. I know. I want people to understand, first of all, that like you need a process, just like you have a process of remodeling your kitchen. There's the design phase, and then the demolition phase, and then the the phase where you're putting up the cabinets and the drywall, and you have to do it in this order. And when it comes to reprogramming your brain, these three phases target the three brain circuits that are creating the problem. And so the realign phase is targeting your brain's CEO. That's the prefrontal cortex. And its job is to override the habits and impulses and moment to moment emotions that are getting in the way of your long term goals. But sometimes it can be like a micromanaging CEO and actually make the problem worse. So that first phase is actually getting your prefrontal cortex to start leading and stop micromanaging. And this is the phase where people see the biggest gains quickly, because a lot of it is just about becoming aware of how your own brain CEO is actually getting in the way, like is actually preventing the workers from just doing the work. And once you start getting out of your own way, then progress feels much easier and happens much faster. And some of that is just understanding certain insights about the brain in general, or certain insights about how your brain works. And the realignment is just about aligning your goals and your vision for what you want to be pulling in the same direction as your thoughts and beliefs about that. And then being in turn feeding down to your daily actions. Or like if those are all pulling in the same direction, then it's much easier to make change. But a lot of times people don't make change because they're not clear about where they're trying to go or what's actually important to them. And so the realignment phase really just comes down to two factors. I call this the important controllables matrix. And it's really just about being clear about what is important to you and what you actually have control over. And when you're clear about those things, then you can focus all of your time and energy and effort on the important stuff that you actually have control over, instead of constantly getting distracted by things that are unimportant or uncontrollable or both.
So this realign portion, if we refer back to the kitchen remodeling analogy, this would be like the planning part where,
Yeah.
you're developing plans that are supposed to align with the ways that you want your kitchen to look like.
Yeah. No, like it's the design phase where you're building your dream kitchen. And part of it is about realizing what are the things that you can't change or what you don't even need to change. Like there's certain things you might not like about your house, but guess what, buddy? This is your house. Like you can't change the location. You can't fundamentally change the structure of it, but you don't need to. And the design phase is a lot about like, oh, well, you don't like that this window is here. You can move that window. Or sometimes it's, well, you don't even need to move the window. You just need to put a mirror there. So we have these things that frustrate us about our lives, and it feels sometimes like an intractable problem. But the biggest aspect of the realignment phase is getting clear about why this is a problem. Because sometimes there's actually a really easy way to get where you're trying to go, but you're stuck over here, like banging your head against the same wall over and over, trying to fundamentally change something about your brain or your life that you can't change. For example, most people's dream job comes with a lot of expectations and commitments, and it's going to interfere with other important things in your life. Well, does that mean that you are just cursed to always be unhappy and be pulled in 1,000 different directions. No. Once you're clear about why you would spend this time focusing on giving your best, when you could be spending time with your kids. Well, when you're clear about that, you're like, oh, well, being good at my job and feeling fulfilled in my work helps me be the person and the parent that I am. And then spending time with my kids and relaxing and nurturing my relationships, that helps me perform better at work. That's why it's called the upward spiral. But right now, the way your brain is programmed is that you see it as being pulled in different directions. And that is what creates unnecessary stress and anxiety.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. So knowing that, how do we move toward the reset
Yeah.
portion?
Well, the reset phase is a crucial piece because this is about calming the emotional reactivity of your brain that keeps pulling you out of alignment. So a lot of people are stuck because they're not aligned in the first place, or they start to get an idea of like what would be aligned, but then their emotional circuitry overreacts about something and messes everything up. And where a lot of people go wrong is they'll try and jump to this phase or only stay in this phase. Like a lot of therapists or a lot of influencers online talk about regulating your nervous system. And that's important because sometimes your nervous system is dysregulated. Like you react very strongly emotionally to things that at another point in your life wouldn't have bothered you as much. And so we're just like, oh, I need to calm down. I need to calm down. But first, before you calm down, you should probably be clear, is this something that you should just calm down about? Or is this something that you should solve? Like if a smoke alarm goes off, well, sometimes it's just because your spouse left the toaster on too long. But just because sometimes it's a false alarm doesn't mean you should always ignore it. The realignment phase is getting clear about, oh, when should I listen to that alarm and run out of the house? And when can I safely ignore it? But if you just jump straight to the resetting phase, then you're trying to convince your emotion circuits to ignore and be calm about everything. When in fact, for the important stuff that you actually have control over, no, you should use those emotions to take action. And if you're just trying to calm your emotions without being aware of what's most important to you or what you have control over, then you're going to not do that. And then you're going to freak out about stuff that's not important, but you're not going to have the clarity to know which is which. And your prefrontal cortex isn't going to be able to lead you through that. So this is an extremely important step to calm the emotional reactivity of the brain. People call it calming the nervous system because it affects your body. But what's happening in your body is triggered by what's happening in the emotional circuitry in your brain. So the first phase is essential. So you realize like, oh, well, what stress is necessary because it's important to me. And that's the stuff I should take action on. The other stuff I should accept or be compassionate about or just calm myself down and breathe through. But you have to start by knowing which is which. But from there, the emotional reset is really just a lot of dumb stuff. Like it's about simple little things that often calm your emotional reactivity before it gets revved up. So this is another thing about calming your nervous system that people get wrong. They wait to do it when they're already emotionally reactive and freaking out. And the answer is like, well, if you just caught it or been a little more aware of your emotions or calmed yourself down 2 hours ago, then it wouldn't be freaking out right now. And some of this is like getting the right amount of sleep for your brain or the right amount of movement and sunlight and shifting your focus towards the things that you appreciate in a way where you're not invalidating your own negative emotions and frustrations and actually working against yourself. But here is also where people don't realize that they need a plan, because this isn't just about like self-care. Yes, you need some self-care, but not just to keep managing the problem or keep, you know, uh, powering through. It's your brain needs certain things to function at its best. And these things will help you reach your goals. So, like, you don't need more sleep all the time. But people are like, oh, I know sleep is good for me, so I should sleep more to calm down. But I don't have time to sleep more. And so I don't know, what should I do? Should I, wake up and work out, or do more work, or play with my kids, or sleep? And you feel pulled in a million different directions. But once you start to see like, oh, how it all fits in together, you can start to realize like, oh, I don't need more sleep. I don't need to spend more time sleeping. It's actually more about the quality of sleep that I get. And there are ways to improve the quality of your sleep so that you can feel more rested in less time. And then you can have more energy to exercise. And then that exercise can help you feel calmer through the day so you don't feel so exhausted. And then you don't even need so much self-care to keep managing the symptoms. But if you don't have clear alignment in the first place, then you're just going to keep doing lots of things to just calm down and not actually have a plan to solve the problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That reminds me of me.
Reminds me of me too. It's like and this is why I like talking to you, because you too have a high performance brain. Like, you are a high achiever. You're just younger. You're earlier on in the path, but like, these brain patterns, we don't have them for no reason. Like, they help you succeed, to be the smart, caring person that you are. And not everyone cares about doing their best or about other people. And these are wonderful qualities, but over time, they can sometimes start to create problems that can feel really difficult to get out of.
Yeah. Okay, so what is the rewire part of this? Is the rewiring like the outcome, or is it another part of the process?
Yeah, so the rewiring is getting the habit circuit in your brain to take these changes that you've made and make them automatic. So in the short term, your prefrontal cortex can override your emotions and habits to reach a goal. This is what willpower is. One of the problems is people think, oh, I just need more willpower. Well, everyone has limited willpower. And if you just rely on willpower, then eventually you'll get exhausted or distracted and your old habits will take over. And you can think about this like training a dog, because the habit circuit in your brain kind of works like your dog. It responds to rewards. It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but you can retrain it if you have the right rewards in the right ways. But you can't use logic with a dog. You can't argue with it. Be like, hey, stop jumping on the couch. Stop barking at the mailman. Like, I mean, you could, but it's not going to have the effect that you want, because it follows its own logic. So let's say you're trying to get your dog to not jump on the couch. Well, you could stand there staring at your dog, like, nope, nope, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And that will successfully keep it off the couch. The problem is when you have to make a phone call or leave the room or do anything else, oh, well, it's going to jump back into old habits because you haven't followed the pathway to retrain it. And that's what you need to do with your own brain. So the fastest way in the short term to start making changes is to start realigning things and then resetting your emotional circuitry so it stops pulling you out of alignment. But if you don't get the habit circuit involved, it's going to constantly be taking a lot of mental effort and emotional effort to keep everything in line. But if you follow the specific way that new patterns are programmed into the habit circuit, then you can get your habit circuit to start automatically pulling you back into these patterns. And this is where it gets really powerful, because when you're stressed, the emotional circuits in your brain will automatically trigger your habit circuits. And if the specific habits programmed into your habit circuit solve that stress, then you don't have a problem. Like, because the stress automatically gets handled. But if the specific habits programmed into your habit circuit create more stress, that's when you're really stuck, because your prefrontal cortex come in and try and manage it and white knuckle it and suppress things. And you can sort of barely manage it, but you're really just slowly drowning. And if you do this 3-phase process, the realign, the reset, and the rewire, then you can get this habit circuit to start doing that all on its own before you are often even aware that you're starting to have a problem, and it'll start solving it automatically. But that's where people, they want to jump to the end. They want to, okay, great. So how do I just make it automatic? Well, it's again, like remodeling your kitchen. You can't just jump to the phase where everything looks amazing. Like, you have to design what you want, and then you have to demo it, and you have to put things back up in the right order. You can't, do the electrical before or, after you put up the drywall, because then you're ripping things down again. Like, there needs a certain process. But just because we're going to get to the place where it's automatic for the long term doesn't mean that's where you start. And so the realignment phase is the quickest way to start moving in the right direction. But then you need to get the emotion circuits and the habit circuits reprogrammed so that now all the different parts of your brain are pulling in the same direction and becomes easy and intuitive. Just like my grandmother, who was baking the cake for her 90th birthday. It was easy for her. She didn't get stressed out about it. She actually enjoyed the process because it was already programmed into her brain. She was following a recipe, but it was easy and automatic and intuitive. And that is what the amazing thing is that happens after you reprogram these brain circuits, that you don't need to keep doing so much self-care. You don't need to be pulled in so many different directions, because you've found a way to automatically and intuitively continue addressing the problem and moving towards the life that you want. And it starts really with just realizing that you're unwilling to keep going on in this pattern. And you're like, well, I'm not going to do it just by juggling a million balls and being pulled in 1,000 directions. I actually need to follow a process to reprogram my brain.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds wonderful. That
and,
sounds
and maybe,
really
right,
great.
like maybe you should go through that. I should have you go through that process. You've done parts of it, and we get to have
No,
these
I really should.
conversations.
I
But
really should go through the whole
yeah,
thing.
what
The
are you
way that you
doing?
explained it, the way that you explained it right now helps me see how this actively prevents unnecessary stress. It's not something that's just combating it. Like it's a prevention
Right. Yeah,
measure.
absolutely. I mean, it's like I describe it a lot of times. If you have a hole in your roof, you can stick a bucket under it when it rains. Like, it's perfectly fine. But no number of buckets is ever going to stop it from leaking. And you could say, oh, well, it's only a problem because of the rain. Yeah, it's always going to rain. You can't move your house somewhere where it doesn't rain. You can't stop it from raining. The rain is only a problem because of the hole in your roof. So at some point you need to realize I'm not willing to just keep putting out more buckets. I want to actually fix the hole in the roof. And guess what? Once you fix the hole in the roof, you don't need to spend so much time putting out all these buckets. But people are stuck because they're like, oh, the bucket's helpful. I just, I'll go for a run and go to yoga class on the weekends and, sleep in on the weekends and do all this stuff and just suppress my emotions. And, I'll have a few outbursts and whatever. But okay, if you're fine with that, then great. But if not, there's a 3-phase process to reprogram these brain circuits so it doesn't have to be this way forever. And it's a lot easier and faster than most people think.
That makes me very hopeful. Thank you so much for going over this
Yes,
framework
and I'm hopeful. And
with
thank you
me
for
today.
letting me share this with you because I'm hopeful for a lot of people out there who they're stuck because they think they just need to keep, you know, their head above water and they don't realize, like, oh, well, if you have a plan, you swim towards land. Oh, you don't need to keep doggy paddling to not drown. And they're stuck between either, well, I have to change, but I can't change. And the neuroscience shows like, no, there is a pathway to change. It just requires a specific process and the right plan in place and the right support to actually implement it.
Thank you for your insights today. I
Yeah,
appreciated
you're
that.
welcome and great talking with you. And hopefully everyone out there found that helpful and will be in touch again. Have a good
Yeah.
one.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.